What if the most dangerous person you know, and hiding in the shadows, but is actually the one signing your paycheck? We are taught that the world rewards the virtuous, but your own eyes tell you a much darker and more frequent story. You see the cruel, the hollow, and the heartless ascending to the highest seats of power while the kind are left to crumble. This is not a mistake or a glitch in the system, but a deliberate and cold biological filter that you are currently caught in. By the end of this deep dive, you will realize that your own goodness is being used as a weapon against your future. What you are about to see will change how you look at every leader, every boss, and every mirror for the rest of your life. We often tell ourselves that the cream rises to the top because of merit. We believe the system rewards the most skilled and the kindest. The truth is much colder and more mechanical than that comforting story. Success is rarely about what you can do for the world around you. It is often about what you are willing to do to the world. We see leaders and think they possess a special kind of magic. We assume their high position is a reflection of a superior inner value. But what if the top is actually a trap for the moral? The climb requires a specific shedding of the weight that holds most people back. That weight is usually a functioning conscience and a sense of fairness. In the wild, the predator does not ask for permission to consume the prey. It simply identifies a need and acts with total, unblinking physical intent. Human hierarchies operate on this same primal frequency, hidden under suits and titles. The people you call the worst are simply the most biologically honest. They understand that social structures are not built on justice or on love. They are built on the leverage of power and the management of fear. Think of the office colleague who takes credit for every group project. You feel a sense of burning injustice when they receive the promotion. You wonder how the management could be so blind to the obvious theft. But the management is not blind. They are looking for a specific signal. They see someone who can claim territory without hesitation or any social guilt. This is a survival trait that organizations subconsciously crave for their own growth. The person who follows the rules is predictable and easily managed by others. The person who breaks them is the one who actually defines the rules. Robert Greene often points out that those who follow morality are easily defeated. They operate within a cage of shoulds and oughts that limit their range. The ruthless individual has a much larger map of possible actions to take. They can move through the shadows while you are stuck on the path. This creates an immediate competitive advantage that is almost impossible to overcome. Your empathy acts as a brake on your speed and your personal ambition. Their lack of it acts as an accelerator into the void of power. We mistake their loud confidence for actual competence because the brain is lazy. We evolved to follow the loudest voice in the room during a crisis. It didn't matter if the loudest person was right or just very loud. Following a confident leader meant the tribe stayed together and survived the night. This ancient instinct is now exploited by the most manipulative among us today. They use your biological need for certainty to pull you into their orbit. They project an image of strength that masks a total lack of substance. You find yourself working for them, wondering how they got so far ahead. It is because they played a game you didn't even know existed yet. The worst people are not glitches in the system, they are the features. They are the logical conclusion of a world that values results over souls. You have likely felt the cold shiver of realizing your boss is hollow. You see the mask slip for a second during a late-night meeting. In that moment, you realize you are not dealing with a fellow human. You are dealing with a biological machine optimized for total vertical ascent. The higher you go, the thinner the air becomes for those who breathe. Only those with a different kind of lungs can survive the high pressure. Most people stop here because the reality of this truth is too heavy. They prefer the lie that being good is enough to win the day. But you are here because you suspect there is something much deeper happening. You are beginning to see the clockwork behind the curtain of social life. This is the only place where we look at the rot without blinking. We do not offer you a way out, only the light to see. Decide now to stop living in the dark with the comforted masses. Join those who seek the uncomfortable truth by clicking the subscribe button now. The next layer reveals why your own empathy is being used against you. It is the very tool they use to keep you standing still. Are you ready to see how your kindness is actually a calculated weakness? The descent into the true mechanics of the ego is only just beginning. Empathy is often described as the highest human virtue and a social glue. We are taught from childhood that feeling for others is our greatest strength. In reality, empathy is a biological tax that the powerful rarely choose to pay. It functions as a restrictive internal governor on your personal and professional speed. When you feel the pain of another, your brain forces you to pause. This pause is a moment of hesitation that a predator never experiences themselves. The worst people are often those who have opted out of this system. They view your emotional sensitivity as a predictable data point to be exploited. Think of the executive who fires hundreds of employees without losing any sleep. You might call them heartless, but the market calls them incredibly efficient leaders. They are not burdened by the faces of the families they are disrupting. Their lack of resonance allows them to make moves that you simply cannot. This is not a moral failing in the eyes of pure evolutionary survival. It is a specialized adaptation that allows for extreme focus on singular goals. Sigmund Freud explored the idea of the ego seeking total dominance over its environment. For most, the superego, the internal moral judge, keeps this desire in check. But for those at the top, the superego is often silent or non-existent. They operate in a state of pure, unadulterated drive toward their own expansion. They see the social landscape as a chessboard where the pieces have feelings. They do not hate the pieces, they simply move them to win the game. You likely find yourself paralyzed by the thought of hurting a friend's feelings. You stay in a dead-end role because you feel loyal to a team. The ruthless person views loyalty as a tool that others use to control you. They discard people the moment the utility of the relationship has finally expired. This creates a massive disparity in how much ground each person can cover. While you are maintaining bridges, they are burning them to provide more light. They understand that most people are desperate to be led and deeply comforted. They provide the illusion of safety while harvesting the resources of the group. We mistake this predatory focus for a sign of true visionary leadership talent. We want to believe they see something we don't because they act so boldly. In truth, they just don't feel the fear of social rejection that haunts you. They are immune to the shame that keeps the average person in line. Shame is the primary fence that keeps the herd from wandering too far away. If you cannot feel shame, the fence effectively ceases to exist for you. The person at the top has usually climbed over the bodies of the shamed. They use the guilt of others as a ladder to reach the sun. Consider the charismatic leader who demands total sacrifice from their subordinates every day. They use your own desire to be good to extract your labor. They frame their selfish ambition as a noble cause you should be proud of. You work harder to please them, fueled by your own misplaced moral compass. They are not working harder, they are simply managing your emotional output for gain. This is the parasite-host relationship at the highest level of corporate life. The system does not just allow this, it actively selects for this trait. Organizations are built to survive, and survival requires a lack of genuine sentiment. When the storm comes, the person who can throw others overboard lives the longest. We call this tough decision-making to make it sound more professional. It is actually just the ancient instinct of the organism to persist at any cost. Your empathy is the anchor that keeps you drowning in the rising tide. You might feel a sense of revulsion as this reality begins to settle in. That revulsion is your internal system trying to protect its fading moral illusions. But the mask of the world is thick and requires a steady hand to peel. Only here do we strip away the skin to see the bone beneath. The next layer explores the terrifying reality of the Dark Triad in high office. We will look at why your brain actually wants to be deceived. Why do we keep choosing the wolves to guard the sheep in our lives? The answer lies in a part of your mind you don't control. We often wonder how the most manipulative individuals manage to hide in plain sight. We assume that a bad person would be easy to spot and avoid. The reality is that the most successful predators are masters of the psychological mirror. They do not hide who they are. They reflect back who you want them to be. Psychology identifies a specific cluster of traits known as the Dark Triad of personality. This includes narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy, all operating in a silent, coordinated harmony. Narcissism provides the uncheckable belief that they deserve to be at the very top. Machiavellianism provides the cold, strategic map to get there by any means necessary. Psychopathy provides the emotional vacuum required to execute those plans without any internal friction. Together, these traits create a human being optimized for the acquisition of power. You might think these people would be social outcasts or criminals in our society. Instead, they are often the most charming and persuasive people in the entire room. They understand that human beings do not actually want the truth or the light. Humans want a story that makes them feel significant and safe from the void. The worst people are the best storytellers because they are not limited by facts. They weave fantasies that provide a sense of purpose to the aimless and lost. Jordan Peterson has noted that the shadow within us is often attracted to strength. We mistake the arrogance of the narcissist for the competence of a true leader. Our biology interprets their lack of anxiety as a sign of absolute, objective truth. If they aren't afraid, we assume they must know exactly where they are going. In the ancestral environment, following a confident individual often meant the difference between life and death. We are the descendants of those who follow the most certain voice. The modern world has changed, but our primitive brain architecture has remained exactly the same. We are still scanning for a big man to protect us from the dark. The predator knows this and adopts the costume of the savior to gain entry. They use your own biological needs as a skeleton key to unlock your trust. Think of the politician who promises everything while delivering nothing but empty, echoing rhetoric. You know they are lying, yet a part of you still wants to believe. That part of you is your survival instinct looking for a shortcut to total security. The manipulator feeds that instinct until you are emotionally dependent on their specific brand. They create us versus them narrative to bind you closer to their side. By giving you an enemy, they ensure you never look too closely at the leader. This is a classic survival tactic used by social parasites to maintain their high status. If the group is busy fighting an external threat, the parasite remains safely ignored. They thrive in chaos because chaos masks the tracks of their own personal self-interest. While everyone else is panicked, they are calmly moving the pieces to their advantage. You might feel used when you realize you are just a tool for their ascent. But they do not see it as using you in any negative sense. To them, you are simply a resource to be managed, much like fuel or electricity. There is no malice in their actions, only a pure and focused biological necessity. They are playing a game of numbers while you are playing a game of hearts. The person playing for numbers will always win the high-stakes game of status. The system of corporate and political advancement is designed to filter for these exact qualities. It is a sieve that lets the soft through while catching the hard edges. The worst people rise because they are the only ones who can survive the filter. They are the jagged stones that refuse to be ground down by social pressure. You are beginning to see that the world is not a school for the good. It is a theater for the effective, regardless of the cost to the soul. This realization is the first step toward understanding why you feel so out of place. You are a biological anomaly in a system built for the cold and calculating. Only here do we examine the dark architecture of the world without flinching or looking away. We provide the map of the minefield so you can see where you stand. The next layer will explore the golden handshake of the ego and the price of safety. We will look at why the victim often helps the predator stay in power. Why do we defend the very people who are actively destroying our sense of peace? The trap is deeper than you think, and the exit is a mirror. The most uncomfortable truth about power is that it requires a willing audience to function. We often view the rise of the worst people as a forced occupation. In reality, it is more like a silent, mutual agreement between the predator and the prey. We allow these individuals to lead because they carry the burdens we fear. Making a difficult, cold-blooded decision creates an immense amount of internal psychological stress for most. It is easier to let a monster take the wheel and blame them. This creates a hidden symbiosis where the good people trade their autonomy for a lack of guilt. We let the ruthless rise so we can keep our hands clean. The person at the top accepts the role of the villain in exchange for total control. They understand that your moral superiority is actually a form of deep emotional laziness. You want the benefits of a thriving organization without the stains of the necessary dirty work. The manipulator sees this trade and accepts it with a cold, knowing smile. Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny and push into the dark. We project our own repressed ambition and ruthlessness onto the leaders we claim to hate. By hating them, we convince ourselves that we are nothing like them at our core. This moral theater allows us to enjoy the fruits of their cruelty without feeling responsible. Consider a company that grows by aggressively crushing all of its smaller, local competitors. You enjoy the low prices and the efficiency while complaining about the CEO's greed. Your lifestyle is subsidized by the very behaviors you claim to find morally repulsive. This is the golden handshake of the ego that keeps the system perfectly balanced. The worst people stay at the top because they are doing exactly what we want. They act out the desires we are too afraid to voice in polite, civilized society. They are the avatars of our collective greed and our primal need for total environmental dominance. We keep them in power because they provide the results our biology demands. If a leader fails to produce, we discard them and find a more efficient monster. We do not look for a kinder replacement, we look for a more capable predator. This cycle ensures that only the most detached and strategic individuals ever reach the inner circle. The system is a machine that converts human empathy into raw, usable power. You might feel a sense of betrayal realizing your own complicity in this social structure. You have been taught to see yourself as a victim of the worst people. But the victim often finds a strange, dark comfort in being under the thumb of strength. It removes the terrifying necessity of having to stand up and face the void alone. The predator provides a structure, however cruel, that is better than the alternative of pure chaos. We cling to the tyrant because the tyrant offers a predictable, ordered world. This is why whistleblowers are often treated with such hostility by their own peers and colleagues. They are not just attacking the leader, they are threatening the group's collective safety. The group would rather live in a profitable lie than die in an impoverished truth. The worst people understand this collective cowardice better than anyone else in the room. They use this knowledge to create a shield of human bodies that protects their high position. They know you will not strike at them if it means losing your own comfort. This is the ultimate survival instinct, the preservation of the self through the tolerance of evil. It is a quiet, daily choice that billions of people make every single morning. You are starting to see that the worst people are not the enemy of society. They are the concentrated essence of society's hidden, unacknowledged, and very dark collective will. They represent the part of the human species that refuse to be domesticated by social rules. They are the wild animals who learn to wear a suit and speak of values. The higher you look, the more you see the reflection of the basement of the mind. The penthouse and the pit are connected by the same dark, iron elevator shaft. We are pulling the cable and descending further into the mechanics of the human soul. This is the only place where the lights stay on when the stories fail. The final layer will reveal the silent realization that changes how you see every human interaction. We will look at the mirror and see who is truly standing there. What happens when you realize the worst person isn't just in the office or on TV? The truth is waiting in the last place you would ever want to look. The final realization is the hardest to swallow because it removes the comfort of the victim. We spent our lives looking up and pointing the finger at the monsters above. We convinced ourselves that we were a different species, built from a softer, kinder material. But the worst people are not a separate category of human beings or biological errors. They are simply the version of us that stopped pretending the social contract was real. They are what happens when the human survival instinct is allowed to run completely cold. If you were placed in a position of absolute power, the same machinery would begin to turn. The same quiet voice would tell you that the end justifies the meanest of ways. We all carry the blueprint for the tyrant within our own genetic and psychological code. Most of us just lack the opportunity, the timing, or the stomach to build it. The people at the top are those who leaned into the void instead of backing away. They accepted the truth that the world is a feast and you are either eating or being eaten. They realized that the good people were actually just the weak people waiting for a master. This is the quiet realization that changes the way you see every single human interaction. Every conversation is a negotiation of status, and every kindness is a subtle form of social debt. We are all participating in a massive, hidden game of leverage and psychological positioning. The worst people are simply those who have the courage to play the game without the mask. They have looked into the mirror and accepted the predator staring back at them in the dark. You feel a sense of unease because you recognize a flicker of that same predator in yourself. You have felt the secret thrill of being right while someone else was proven wrong. You have felt the silent satisfaction of seeing a rival stumble while you stayed perfectly upright. These are the seeds of the very ruthlessness you claim to despise in your leaders. The hierarchy is not an external structure imposed upon us by a few greedy or evil men. It is the externalization of our own internal desire for order, safety, and personal dominance. The worst people rise to the top because they are the most honest reflections of our collective nature. They are the winners of a competition that we are all silently participating in. We do not live in a world of victims and villains, but of varying degrees of survivalists. Your morality is not a shield, it is a luxury provided by the success of the ruthless. The peace you enjoy was bought with the cold calculations of people who do not know your name. The system functions because someone, somewhere, was willing to be the monster you wouldn't be. This is the uncomfortable truth that the world tries to hide with bright lights and happy stories. But once you see the clockwork, you can never go back to believing in the magic. You are now standing in the light, watching the gears of the human machine grind and turn. There is no advice here, because there is no way to change the nature of the beast. There is only the quiet realization of what we truly are when the social pretenses are stripped away. You are no longer living in the dark with those who need the comforting lies. This channel is the only place where the skin is peeled back to show the raw, cold bone. This is where we stop looking for heroes and start looking at the truth of the species. If you are ready to stop being a passenger in the stories of others, you belong here. Click the subscribe button now to join the few who choose the weight of the truth. The decision to see is the only power you truly have in a system built for the blind. By staying here, you are choosing to walk through the world with your eyes wide open. Now, look at the person in charge of your life and ask yourself what they had to kill. Then, look in the mirror and ask what you are still keeping alive for their benefit. The truth doesn't set you free. It just shows you the exact dimensions of your own cage. Sometimes, knowing the shape of the bars is the only thing that actually matters in the end.